and welcome back to the Selfish Griever Podcast. Today's episode is definitely enlightening. It was recorded off the cuff, impromptu, based on a real life event that happened to me today. And I think it so desperately needs to be talked about and really put out in the open for people to see. Because this behavior is really happening and it's absolutely not okay and not supportive of grieving moms. If you've returned from listening to the first episode, welcome back and thank you for continuing on as a listener. You can find me on Instagram with more information and support at The Selfish Griever. And I hope you enjoy the show. This is the Selfish Griever Podcast, and I'm Whitney Samorano. I've been a grieving mom since June 2020, when one of my twin sons died in an accident when he was 2 years old. I help moms who have lost a child navigate grief spiritually and find purpose again. This is a podcast where we'll talk about the grief journey for moms, spiritual support, and following intuition as you move forward. On this podcast, you'll hear mine and other grieving moms talk about their story, as well as interviews with professionals in the spiritual community. Welcome to the Selfish Griever Podcast. Hello, and thanks for coming back to listen to the second episode of the Selfish Griever Podcast. I initially had thought that this podcast episode was going to be about the night of Orion's death. I was going to give this intimate view into the night that my life changed and my son died. And while that episode will still be coming, I am a big believer of intuition, guidance from the universe, and something happened to me today, the day right after I recorded my first episode, that really hit so perfectly the nail on the head of why I'm here doing this podcast, that I taking it as a sign that the universe wants me to talk about this first. So this morning when I woke up, I had a text from a person. Let's make up a name for her. How about her name will be Julie. Let's call her Julie. And Julie is not a friend of mine. She's an acquaintance in the slightest of terms. I've never been to her house. I don't know her children's names. I wouldn't recognize her husband on sight. I definitely do not know this woman by any means. But I have spoken to her a couple of times, and she does have my phone number. And so I received a text from her this morning that I'm going to read. And it says, "Hi, Whitney. I just wanted to check on you. This is Julie. There are a couple of your friends here who have approached me over the last couple of weeks who love you and are concerned for you. They approached me wanting my advice, because I'm a grieving mom too, on ways they could reach out and love on you. Since we have chatted before, I thought I would reach out. I am praying for you and would love to hear where you are at." Now, keeping in mind, I've been posting on a public platform, primarily on Instagram, which I've mentioned here, the Selfish Griever, but those posts are shared to Facebook, which is an account that I've had since college. So my sister, my mom, my dad see the posts, people that I've grown up with, friends that I have now. They're not, in some secret place that nobody else has seen. And nobody else has come to me saying that they're concerned over the content of my posts. I mean, if anything, it's been the opposite, that I've been receiving words of support. And previous experience with Julie did make me want to assume that her concerns were more about my refusal to conform to her particular ideology on Jesus and God. But I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt and think maybe there really has been something I've said that has seemed off, that is concerning, that maybe my mental state is not, one of clarity right now. So I chose to respond to her. And I actually, to preface this first, I did consult with close people to me in my inner circle who've seen my posts that I've recently been making and checked in with them to ask, as a baseline, have you had any concerns you just haven't felt you needed to voice yet? And I can say unequivocally, none of them had concerns. They acknowledged that some of the things I had been talking about were difficult topics, but that those were on par with the subject matter of grief and my position as a grieving mom, which make them valid. So I responded to Julie. Hi, Julie. Thanks for reaching out. I didn't realize anything I was posting was concerning people, as I've heard nothing but support from my friends and family, and I'm doing really well. Have a great day. If you couldn't tell in that text, I was trying to appropriately respond in an open and appreciative way, while also simultaneously putting an end to this conversation. But I guess my subtlety was missed, because Julie responded with a text that, I'm going to be honest, I haven't even read in its entirety yet because it's quite long. But we're going to step into it now, because after just the first paragraph of her text, I could immediately tell where this is going. Hi, Whitney. I am not on social media. I think your friends here are most concerned that you're trying to find your healing without God. And as you can imagine, we believe He is the true source of healing. She then quotes to me John chapter 14, verse 27. She makes sure to include the translation as well as NIV, which I guess I'll go ahead and read. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. And then John chapter 16, verse 6. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And then 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4. Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. Then she says, your friends and family love you so much they want you to do anything you can to give you peace in your heart. You may find lots of things that temporarily give you peace. It is my belief that only true peace and healing can come from God. I am praying for that kind of peace and healing for you. You'll find in the world there are things like divination, which Satan will offer someone promising peace. But Satan is the father of lies, and it will ultimately lead to ruin. Then she quotes Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 10 through 11. There shall not be found among you any that useth divination, sorry, I'm stumbling over that word, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Then she quotes 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 12 through 14. And I will keep on doing what I am doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things they boast about. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. It is not surprising, then, if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness. Their end will be what their actions deserve. I realize that this text might make you mad, but at some point in your life, you might realize that it's true. Just know God loves you and is right there with you, wanting you to turn to Him. I've yet to respond to this text. Well, as I said previously, I hadn't even really read it in its entirety. I'd only read the first paragraph, so of course I wasn't going to respond partially. But, I mean, I'm pretty flabbergasted. First of all, this woman's got balls. I mean, she doesn't know me. And she clearly feels entitled enough to be texting me and quoting scripture to me. But really, the underlying truth is that this is terrifying. I don't understand this type of, frankly, persecution. And the absolute irony of all of this is that she, in this display, are the exact reason that I'm on social media talking about this stuff. Because it shouldn't be like this. It is fine to talk about what you believe in, which is what I'm doing. It is not okay to judge other people and diminish them. I mean, she called me Satan's follower, essentially, which, by the way, I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in demons. I mean, why would we need any of that when we as humans are doing a fine job ourselves of tearing each other down and creating our own prisons? We don't need any extra help from Satan or demons in that department, as is evidenced by this text. And maybe the craziest part of it all is that I'm not part of their church. I've never been part of their church. I came in contact with this group and their speaker indirectly because of a mom's group that I joined when I was looking for community, because I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 young children and didn't know anybody where I was living. And somehow, they still have taken it upon themselves to seek me out. I actually no longer live in their community. I don't see them anymore. I'm not part of that mom's group. I've moved away from that area since then. And I mean, I guess it's just too much to let bygones be bygones, because I haven't directly addressed any of them. You won't find anywhere in my content that I ever say that you should not listen to the Bible, that you should not feel comforted going to your church. That is not my message in the slightest. My message is that if that is not a source of comfort for you anymore, that's okay. And you should feel safe and protected in the freedom of looking for something more. And in all honesty, this journey that I've been on, my grief journey coupled with the spiritual awakening, has been more Christ-like than anything that I've ever experienced in my life, despite being exposed to the church and Christian schools my entire life. And that's not to say that, all of them were evil and everything was wrong. That's not true at all. It's just, it never really spoke to me on a soul level the way that what I have learned since then speaks to me now. And I don't think it separates me from God, though I don't use that word anymore intentionally, because for me it's been conditioned to be this, white man sitting up on a throne in the sky, looking down and judging me and always finding me wanting. And I personally never identified with that. It didn't make me feel good. It definitely didn't resonate with the concept of a loving father, which is also an image that's perpetuated, but seems to be the secondary image to judging us, knowing that we're always sinning and imperfect and essentially horrible, and we should be asking for forgiveness every day. But what I experience now is this universe that is so all-powerful and all-loving that I don't have to ask for forgiveness for anything because I'm accepted the way that I am. And even more so, the way that I am is the way that I was meant to be. And it was purposefully created this way because there were going to be challenges in my life that I was intended to learn from and that were going to help me grow. And so honestly, I believe that it was part of the universe's plan that I be exposed to this group of evangelic Christians and feel this kind of persecution after the death of my son, because my personality was crafted in such a way that I am strong enough to say, no, your way is not the only way. You are not right to diminish my beliefs because they don't align with yours. And true Christ-like representation would be you lovingly accepting everyone. And lovingly is not judging them. And I think about sometimes that I have been so sensitive to their comments and persecution, especially in the beginning when my grief was so fresh and everything. I mean, you're basically like an exposed, raw nerve ending when you're first on your grief journey. So any comment, even the ones that are intended to be supportive and not corrective and admonishing, are hard to hear sometimes. And, you know, the comments that they've made to me were not those. And I have been susceptible to that, to the point that I hid for a long time what was really bringing me comfort, for fear of judgment and admonishment. And that didn't feel good, to act like I was living this secondary life behind closed doors where I could be comfortable and be myself, and then have to put on a front when I walked outside and saw people. Or feel stupid if I said something out loud about a sign that I saw, as though everyone was going to think I was crazy. And I think about the people who are not me, who are not just indirectly associated with these communities, who are not in a position that they feel comfortable to say no if they don't have the time or the energy or the resources to research and look everywhere that I've looked for more information to try and help me. And I feel so sad for that grieving mom who might be in that situation, because grief doesn't have a specific demographic. Children don't only die in large metropolitan areas where grieving moms can be exposed to a lot of different resources and support. And grief is such an intimately personal journey that I can't imagine if I had to spend every day playing along, pretending like something spoke to me or personally supported me that didn't actually. I mean, I think I would die a little bit more every day inside. And I think, that I've been set up in this exact position where I was exposed to it without being so fully integrated into it, that I have a degree of separation that insulates me while simultaneously having experienced those feelings that then prompt me to speak up and speak out, because I know I'm not the only grieving mom who feels this way. And I'd be naive to think that I'm the only grieving mom who's been exposed to evangelical Christians who want to convert me, who want to caution me against my Satan ways. So if this is the first and last episode of the podcast that you ever listen to, that's okay, because that's my whole message in a nutshell. I am going to find grieving moms like me who believe in something more, and I'm going to put their stories on this podcast. And I'm going to find experts in spiritual fields, all kinds of different spiritual fields, who've experienced grief, who've experienced adversity in embracing what felt true and right to them, despite maybe their family, their friends, their community, or maybe even strangers telling them that they're wrong. Because I'm going to build a community here that supports the people who are looking for something else. And it's not going to be a place of judgment. It doesn't have to be one or the other. There are a lot of beautiful parts of the Bible that I think about and realize how much more they mean to me now through this new lens of spirituality that I'm referencing it through. And so you're never going to hear me tell anybody they shouldn't believe what they believe. I don't think that we're meant to be that way. I think that the way you are, the way you think, what you believe is exactly how you were meant to be here. And honestly, even these, what I would call zealots, are meant to be here speaking this message, because without them, there wouldn't be me. There wouldn't be me feeling this way and feeling so urged to speak up and help somebody else who really needs it. And I absolutely believe that someday everyone is going to die, and we're all going to know the truth at that point. And in the meantime, the best that we can possibly do as humans here on earth is try and seek out what speaks to our own soul individually. And hopefully you can be lucky enough to find other people whose souls resonate with that same message and be part of a community. I'm not afraid of embracing all of it. I'm not afraid to look for something more outside the Bible. And that doesn't mean that everything that I read or come across I absolutely believe in immediately. It's definitely a sifting process, but I don't believe either that, quote unquote, God or the universe stopped gifting human life with intelligence when the scribes of the Bible died. There are more books being written. There are more experiences being had, more miracles that are happening every day. And they are valid too. And it's okay if you want to learn more about them. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're going to hell, which I also don't believe exists. I mean, outside of the fact that our own human minds can create this hell that we end up in when we die, but that's for another podcast. And I understand the fear because I've experienced it. And it's, like I said, not even been at the hands of my actual community. It's just mere acquaintances. But it's scary. And it's okay to be afraid. And it's okay if you only ever listen to this podcast in secret, in hiding, and feel comfort at that level. Because I'd rather be there for you in those moments than have not created this podcast or been there at all. I want every grieving mom who feels like me, who needs those signs from their children, who wants to talk to the angels for support, who desperately needs a medium so that they can hear from their deceased child. I want those grieving moms to know that they're not alone. And I want anyone else who's listening who's not a grieving mom to think about how hard, really in a way that you're honestly never going to be able to truly fathom, how hard that grief journey is after you've buried your child. And think for a moment about whether or not whatever God you know would really want to make that any harder for a grieving mom. Because I know that the people that I love, I truly want to support in any way that I can, short of them physically harming themselves. But if somebody believed in something and that's what helped them get through the day every day, I'd let them have it. And my love is just a tiny microcosm of what the universe or God's unconditional, all-encompassing love is. I can't even fathom in my tiny human brain. So if that's true, then I really can't imagine a God, an all-loving God, who would not be supportive of these grieving moms. And that's all I came here to say. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Selfish Griever Podcast. If you liked what you heard and want to hear more, make sure you hit subscribe so you're alerted when new episodes are released each week on Friday. And also, please leave a review if you have some thoughts you'd like to share or praise you want to give. Definitely, if you didn't enjoy the episode, though, I would caution against leaving reviews because any reviews will help with improving and increasing the visibility of this podcast. So if you disagreed, you think I'm following Satan, you probably should just keep it to yourself. Otherwise, all reviews and comments are welcome. And I look forward to seeing you next week.